Is the test point of the truth of the gospel that I get what I pray for? Welcome to another episode of Talks with Dad Rod. I am Ted Rosenblatt, and I'm here with my father, Dr. Rod Rosenblatt. I want what I need. A lot of it's need, some of it's want.
Yep.
Sometimes I want to win the lotto.
Yep.
I am tired of the earthly burdens.
Yep.
It doesn't seem like I get a lot of those prayers answered. It seems like, honestly, it seems like some of my smaller prayers are answered more than my big answers or prayers are answered.
Yep.
And that's a little frustrating.
Yep.
The big ones are the ones that count, right?
Yep. Every child, by intuition, if he's within some kind of Christian circle, goes to this and tests it out. In my case, I was younger than 10, and I knew that I needed a Vespa motor scooter. I had no doubt about that at all. And I tried to be sincere about it in my prayers and hoped to wake up and see that at the foot of my bed when I woke up the next morning.
They have car ads like this now, by the way.
Pardon?
They have car ads like this now about the man not seeing that and then eventually waking up with a big car in the driveway.
Really?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's built into us to try it. Now, with a good Christian education, we should be turned away from that as being the indicator for the truth of the gospel. A good pastor will turn us from it, and he will turn us toward Christ rising from the dead. That's the test point. It's historical more than it's answered prayer. So we've got to, all of us, stop thinking that the test point for the truth of the gospel is answered prayer. It isn't. But Christ's resurrection from the dead in normal history, that is where we're to go. You say, well, I don't like that God chose history. Christian answer, tough. Huh? That's what he chose. 3 days dead and alive and seen by others after his resurrection. Then we're called to exercise prayer because we're told to. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm looking at it from the perspective of an agnostic, an outsider, an unbeliever, who may be on the fence, who's heard this whole time, and now they are in a time of tribulation. They are in a time when they're suffering. They have a family member's life on the line. And you see this sometimes also in movies and stories where people will go, God, I've never prayed before.
Yep.
I don't know what to say.
Yep.
If you're out there, would you please, and you can hear the implicit thing that's going on is, I will believe in you if you will grant me this one thing.
Yes.
As an outsider, it's like, I'm going to test you now.
Yep. And it's in all of us. But I want to turn that unbeliever away from answered prayer, and I want to turn him toward New Testament history, because that's what the Lord himself said was the test point of the whole thing. 1 Corinthians 15 is an extended argument, pro and con, the whole chapter. And Paul, bless his heart, says, if he was not raised from the dead, we are of all men most miserable. In other words, we've believed in something that won't pan out. But if he was risen from the dead, there is every reason in the world to bend the knee to him as God and Savior on the basis of being raised again from the dead. That's where we're to look. And there are marvelous Christian books on it, from very simple to pretty scholarly.
It just seems like the world's determined to prove that God does not hear our prayers, with these scientific studies of people, anybody's listening to this,
I can give you an example of that. Some well-meaning Christian prayed over certain beans that were growing and didn't pray over the control group to see if the beans that he prayed over grew more quickly than the unprayed over beans. We're like that.
Putting God in a lab rat cage and poking him with things and seeing what it produces.
Yep.
Yeah, it's. I don't know if you remember, but for years I've said, we tend to have a tendency to do like the movie Big. We stick a quarter into the machine, Zoltar, and drop it properly into the mouth. When the mouth is open, if I swing the swing arm exactly at the right angle and I do it at exactly the right time, then it will kick out a thing and it will give me the thing I'm looking for.
Yep.
We always would like to make God into a vending machine.
Yep.
And when he doesn't seem to conform to what I need this week, and admittedly, in our suffering, we have some very real needs.
Sure.
This is life and limb sometimes. This is hard, dark stuff of death and life, and I want my child to not die. I want my family member to not die, or a friend, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Or I don't want to lose my house. The storm is coming, and I might lose everything, and I don't have any backup. I mean, there's all kinds of things.
Yep.
And these are very real. So it's really hard to face these things with not having that expectation. It'd be so much easier if we could say, I could just put the magic coin in the magic slot, and my house will be okay when the hurricane gets here.
Yeah, and there are verses like that from the Lord himself. Whatever you pray for will be granted to you. That's a hard verse. When it doesn't seem to be working.
That's how we get to something like the prayer of Jabez.
Yeah.
The key in the lock, the coin in the slot.
Right. Exactly. Evangelicals have all sorts of stuff like that.
But it doesn't hinge on that.
No.
That's not the point.
No, there's a singular point, and 1 Corinthians 15 is worth reading or rereading for that reason.
And
Paul directs us to Christ's resurrection from the dead almost solely by itself.
And God doesn't answer all our prayers in the way that we would like. He's not a vending machine.
Nope.
Going to wrap it. Thank you for joining us. This is Talks with Dad Rod. We hope you've enjoyed this time. Go to 1517.org for more content like this and follow us, and we will see you soon. Thank you for joining us on Talks with Dad Rod, part of the 1517 Podcast Network. This podcast and all 1517's content is made possible through financial support by listeners just like you. Please visit 1517.org for more. And please consider clicking on the donate button and making a recurring or one-time contribution to help us share this good news in a world which so desperately needs it.